All right, so we're switching it up this week and we're moving on to factoring. So if you really just want to think of it as the past 2, 3 weeks here, we've been going in forwards. Now we're kind of going in reverse with what we've been doing. All right. So the thing you want to keep in mind here as we're going through this stuff is going back to when you're first learning your times tables. You talked about a factor times a factor is equal to the product. So like 4 times 5 equals 20. Again, that's your factor times a factor is equal to the product. 4 and 5 are factors of 20. Or if you want to do 8 times 7 is 56. Again, factor times a factor is equal to the product. So when I start to talk about, what are the factors of this number? It's what numbers make this number up using multiplication, okay? So we're breaking numbers down, all right? That's like the main thing you want to keep in mind here, is that factors make up a number. Again, too, you could even talk about negatives, like -6 times 3 is equal to -18. -6 and 3 are factors of -18. But again, it's a factor times a factor is equal to the product. Okay, so a couple things we got to talk about today are GCF. Remember, that is the greatest. It's a bad looking G there. Greatest common factor. All right. So the mistakes that happen here would be like if I ask you for the GCF of how about 18 and 30? Okay, they have a lot of factors. I would start going down the line here. Does 2 go into 18 and 30? Yes, it does. You got 2. Does 3 go in? Yeah. Does 4? No. 5? No. 6? Yes. 7, 8, 9, 10. No, that's it. So you have 3 factors in common here: 2, 3, and 6. But we need to make sure we're choosing the greatest factor. So 6 is the GCF of 18 and 30. Okay, so that's where like the tricky part comes in, especially when you're given 2 even numbers. 20 and 50. How about? Okay, it's really tempting right away to be like, okay, 2 goes into both those. 2's a factor, and it certainly is. 2's definitely a factor of 20 and 50. But when you start to think about your factors, 2 goes into both. 3, 4, 5 goes into both. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 goes into both there. And that's it. So you have 3 factors in common with 20 and 50, but 10 is the greatest. I'm going to write it out for you. The greatest common factor. Okay? So again, it's just coming down to this. You need to make sure you're picking the greatest common factor. All right, so sometimes you're going to be given 3 numbers, and you're going to have to decide the greatest common factor. I would always start with the smallest number. So your factor is at 12. You have 1 times 12. 12 doesn't go into 20, so you can just cross that out. You have 2 times 6. 6 doesn't go into 20 or 32, so that doesn't work. You also have 3 and 4. 4 goes into all those. And now these are all your factors at 12. So, this is all I got to work with here. 4 goes into all 3 of those. So 4 is the GCF. Again, your factors are 20, 1 times 20, 2 times 10, and 4 times 5. So again, they got the 4 in common, 32. You have 1 times 32, 2 times 16, 4 times 8, and that's it. All right, but the one thing I would make sure you're doing with these when you're trying to figure out the GCF is that you're systematic in the way you do it. So I'm always starting off with the number itself and one, and I was like, oh, then I just go down the line. I try to think: does 2 go into this number? Does 3 go into this number? Does 4 go into this number? I just go down the line so that there's a pattern to the way you're figuring out these greatest common factors. All right, so let's go with so again, start with that smallest number, 8. You have 1 times 8. You also have 2 times 4. 24, you have 1 times 24. 2 times 12, 3 times 8, and 4 times 6. 40, you have 1 times 40. 2 times 20. 4 times 10. 5 times 8. And the reason you want to write out whatever the number is in 1 is because sometimes that number may be your GCF. So in this case, 8 is the GCF. I know that 2 also goes into those. I know 4 goes into them, but 8 is my greatest. So GCF is 8. Those guys right there. Okay? So don't forget about the actual number. It's a factor of itself. Okay, let's do one more of those. So let's go with let's go 32, 64, and 12. So again, factors of 12, 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4. 32, you have 1 times 32, 2 times 16, and 4 times 8, 64. We have 1 times 64, 2 times 32, 3 doesn't go in, 4 times 16, and then 8 times 8. So it looks like 4 is going to be our GCF there. But again, write them out. It helps to be able to see all those. As you go through these, you're not just trying to keep a track of all of it in your head. So 18, 80, and 68. 18, you always have 1 times 18, 2 times 9, 3 times 6. 80, we're going to have a lot here. 1 times 80, 2 times 40, 4 times 20, 5 times 16. 6 does not go in, 7 does not go in, 8 times 10. I think that's it there. 68, 1 times 68, obviously. 2 times 34. 3 doesn't go in. 4 times 17. 5 doesn't go in. 6 doesn't go in. 7 doesn't go in. 8 doesn't go in. All right, so that's it then. So really with all these factors that we have listed here, looks like the GCF here is going to be 2. All right, it can't be 4 because we don't have a 4 over here. So that's it. Okay, so again, list out your factors. It's going to help in the long run. It's good practice. And that's all we're going to stick with today is just the numbers here.